Do you guys always have an excuse for every single loss in your match history? Our coaches have heard it all, and we're here to address that. Hey gamers, it's Nathan Ng back again with another ProGuides video. If you guys haven't noticed already, I might have a lisp and trouble pronouncing some things because I recently just bit my tongue. Now, I literally may have bit my tongue, but maybe sometimes you guys need to figuratively bite yours. We'll be discussing a couple of excuses that we hear way too often in the community. And I'm not saying that you guys are the ones saying these excuses, but maybe send this video to your toxic friend. We all have one. We believe that these excuses stem from a toxic mentality that prohibits your ability to improve as a player, because if you never realize your own faults and your own mistakes, you're never going to improve. Challenger players got to the top of the ladder with their critical self-analysis and their willingness to accept responsibility no matter what. They did not, for the most part, complain about how they were always unlucky and matched up with bad teammates or rage quit because they didn't get a gank that they wanted. Obviously, there are exceptions to this toxic mentality, as there are plenty of highly ranked players that can't get over their bad teammates, but they are still high ranked because of their ability to effectively carry most of their games despite their teams feeding hard. Anyway, I'm sure that you guys are all dying to see what excuses these are, because I'm pretty sure that you guys can relate to it, and if your friend says any one of these, then you might have to like this video. Make sure to check out ProGuides.com for our online courses and live classes given by your favorite pro players like Bunny Fufu and Pobelter. We also have a coaching service where the top players run one-on-ones, do live coaching, and analyze the VODs that you submit for your improvement. The season is ending soon and we want all of you guys to reach your goals, so don't regret the decision of not checking it out. And as usual, our question of the day is, what has been the most effective way that you found your improvement? Personally, watching VODs of pro players play matchups and taking notes have been extremely helpful, as I see a lot of unique combos and see how they play certain situations a lot more differently than I would probably play myself. Anyway, leave your answers in the comments down below. Now with that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. Who has heard this one? I can't carry because my jungler never ganks while their jungler is camping me. Okay, but before we dive into this topic, just like the enemy jungler and your laner dove you under your turret, it is true that your jungler may have pathed terribly and simply does not gank your lane. However, this does not really give you an excuse to give up and not try your best to win despite having a bad jungler. With that being said, your jungler may actually be smart and you aren't seeing the bigger picture. There are a couple of reasons why your jungler may not gank your lane ever. Say you're playing a weak side of the map. What this means is that you're playing in a matchup that isn't really volatile, and that any lead that you get from a gank may not be substantial enough for your jungle to visit to be worth the time and effort. Imagine that you're playing Ornn into a Malphite and your bot lane is running Draven Thresh. If your jungler successfully pulls a gank off in your lane, then you won't really be able to do anything crazy with your lead that you get with Ornn. On the flip side, the rewards are greater if your jungler ganks the lane that is extremely volatile or the lane that can snowball out of control, such as the Draven Thresh lane. The game could be over with a simple play or two, so your job would be simply just to farm safely and then frontline for your bot lane. Your wave management probably needs improvement. There are two main ways to set up a gank that has a high probability of working. One way that you can set up your lane for a gank is by freezing the wave on your side of the lane. That, along with you slowly chipping away at their HP, will tremendously increase your odds of a gank working, as the enemy laner will have to cautiously walk up just to CS. It is obvious that your opponent isn't always respecting your jungler at all, so you can just ask for a gank. On the other hand, if your wave is always on their side of the map, which happens from mindlessly shoving the wave, and your opponent maintains a freeze, then you probably shouldn't be asking for a gank, and don't complain about not getting ganked, because it's simply your fault for putting yourself in that situation. The second way to set up your wave so you can get an easy gank is by slowly pushing your wave and then crashing it when your jungler arrives into your lane. This is more viable for the top lane and the bottom lane, but it is still possible for this to work in the mid lane if you are very cautious of the enemy jungler. This setup is very effective at getting you ahead and then leaving your opponent tremendously behind, as they will be losing more than 2 waves if executed properly. This setup is also really easy for your jungler to recognize and then act upon, as they can see the huge wave that is built up. This gank will look even juicier if you're able to get some harass in before the dive, as a dive can be disastrous with a single misplay that leaves your opponent alive with 1 HP. Your jungler is simply a champion that needs to farm first. Champions such as Evelynn or Karthus need to focus on farming and keeping their efficient farming path. They need to hit level 6 and get items ASAP to get their power spikes so they can take over that game. In addition to the farming nature of those picks, their ganks are definitely not as effective as the other junglers such as Elise or Lee Sin. Elise and Lee Sin both have abilities that make ganks a lot easier to pull off, and have the ability to snowball early if the opportunity arises. Evelynn and Karthus both need items and levels, so if they try to gank a lane that isn't pretty much guaranteed, it will almost be a huge waste of time and they will be behind on tempo. The second excuse is, I didn't know he did that much damage, or wow, that ability reached me. If your main goal is to improve and climb, then you probably need a general idea of how much damage each champion does at every point in the game. Similar to how all of you know how much damage Kassadin's ult does along with how short the cooldown is, you should also know when each champion is strong and play to your strengths and to their weaknesses. Another example of this is when you play against Darius with Ghost and Flash. An inexperienced player would not know how strong Darius' all-in is around level 2 and 3 and may have burned Flash early on into the lane. His ability to 1v1 in terms of damage is uncontested, and knowing this, you can probably space out properly and not get Q'd or E'd, so you don't have to get run down by him early on. If something similar like this happens to you in your future games, then, well, that's honestly okay. The best thing that you can do is to simply learn from your mistakes and then not make the same ones again. An excuse that is often made similar to the previous one is underestimating the ability ranges. So essentially having poor champion knowledge. This one is an important one because it is super crucial to know champion interactions, ability cooldown, and ability ranges so that you can properly space. And a TLDR of why proper spacing is important is because that you always want to be in a safe distance from any potential threats so you can maximize your DPS in any skirmish. As an ADC, you don't want to be 10 miles away from a team fight where you can't do damage to anybody, but you also don't want to be in range of the Syndra with your full combo up. This is a good reason as to why you should probably stick to one tricking a champion or maining 2 different champions at a time when climbing or when you are just simply trying to improve at the game. You want to be as comfortable as possible with the champion that you are playing, understanding when you are weak and when you are strong, whether that be from an item or a level power spike. If you need help with that, or if you feel stuck and you don't know how else to improve, we highly suggest you check out ProGuides.com for our coaching services. Sometimes it just takes another pair of eyes to recognize your mistakes and to have professionals just tell you how you can improve. Anyway, one way to learn how much damage a champion does or how much range they have is to simply play them yourselves. Playing champions yourself will most likely open your eyes to the strengths and weaknesses of each champion, as well as getting the feel on their ability ranges and cooldowns. Make sure you limit test a bunch and really understand the interactions with each ability and learn the small intricacies of each ability as they will come in handy someday. My team always sucks, so I can't win. Or always unlucky with matchmaking. This is the infamous quote that is synonymous with the belief of elo hell and how they can't climb because their team is always holding them back. This is, of course, as true as the earth as being flat because pros and challenger players are able to consistently hit challenger on freshly made accounts with little to no trouble at all. Players with this mindset simply can't accept that the problem is with their own gameplay and they are too stubborn to fix their mistakes. We don't want you viewers to fall into this trap of being complacent with your own skill and overlooking every mistake that you make no matter how small. For sure, there are definitely games that are just straight up unwinnable. You will have players on your team that will give up and run it down, or you will have players that just simply DC and just leave the game. What we're trying to say here is that many games can be won, and you should win every game if it is indeed winnable. If Faker were to play on your account and played in your elo, wouldn't you expect to have a much higher chance of winning your game? Well, we both agree that you and I aren't Faker, but we can always strive to be as good as him. There's always something that you can improve from your own gameplay, and you're not trying to improve your teammates, so there's no real benefit in putting the blame towards them. Keep in mind that these are only a few of the many other excuses that can restrict your ability to grow as a player. We really wanted to go over these common excuses because we believe that a huge majority of players tend to get too caught up of the external factors that shouldn't really matter. This will cause them to overlook all the critical mistakes that they're making themselves, and then they will probably fall into the pitfall of not ever improving. The thing that we really want you guys to take away from is that it doesn't really matter how good or bad your teammates are. All that really matters is how you can be the best version of yourself to carry any game in any scenario, since you are the only consistent factor in every single game that you play. If you simply cannot climb out of a rank, the blame can only be put on you. This shouldn't be seen as a negative statement, as that means that when you eventually climb the ladder, you're doing something different, and that thing you're doing differently is right. So you know that you're actually improving. Anyway, we hope that this video helped improve your attitude towards the game and guided you towards the right way of improving. Times are a little bit tough right now, so if you guys need help or if you guys want to talk to a community, we here at ProGuides have a Discord in the comment and the description down below. Sometimes life is stressful enough, and League of Legends can add to that stress if you don't really keep your mentality in check. So make sure you guys are taking care of your mental health as well. That's all I have for you guys today. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.